Joining me today on Psycomedy, it's Joe Stapleton. Joe, hello.
Hey, what's up? Yes, that's what I'm used to. There it is. Perfect.
Yeah, that sweet applause, Joe. Sweet applause. Welcoming
Deafening
you.
silence.
Yeah, get used to it, man. Get used to it. Um, Not in your line of work, though. You know, you're going to be fine. The poker business is going to be fine. My business, stand-up, is fucked, but you're going to be fine. Anyway, yes. Thank you for coming on today. How are you? Are you looking well? Are you COVID-free?
I don't know. I spend like a good 3 to 4 hours every day wondering if I have it. Just sort of laying on my back in the worst possible position because it makes it difficult for you to breathe. Going, I think I can hear. Is that a wheeze? And then I'll go. Oh, there's the dry cough. That happens for like 2 to 3 hours every day.
Yeah, that's just waking up, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
I'm feeling more and more like that as time goes on. I'm like, are these stairs getting harder to climb? It's just like, yeah.
Yeah, but it's hard to tell what is general malaise and what is actual virus.
Yeah. But you're pretty good though. We spoke just before we started recording. You said you're pretty good. I listened to you on a YouTube thing, a kind of question and answer thing a couple of months ago maybe, and you were saying, I'm living my best life. What can I complain about? So is that still the case?
Yeah, it kind of is.
Good for you, Joe. Good for
yeah,
you.
like I'm reluctant to say it, but at least it's honest as opposed
Yeah.
to being like the virus has hit me really hard. You can donate to my Patreon. No, like let's say again, taking out everyone else's experiences, because as comedians, as performers, we are somewhat emotive people. You know, we do sort of take on the feelings of other people. So I feel awful about this, right? Like if I could choose for it to not be happening, of course I would choose for it to not be happening.
Yeah.
But the lockdown part of it, not difficult for me, but I'm in a great position in that I'm an indoor kid to begin with.
Yeah.
I like video games. I like movies. I got a girlfriend that I adore. We get along really well with. We have tons of fun every day.
Oh, great.
My work, I've been fortunate enough to continue working throughout most of this.
Yeah.
So all of the like needs that a person could have were met for me, and I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
So it's the worst part for me is the guilt of knowing that other people are not having such a good time with this. Also, I feel guilty for the people like the guy that works on the telephone pole that still has to fucking go to work every day. Like everyone's just sitting at home watching from the front window with their arms crossed, being like, when are you going to fix my internet, mate? And this guy has to like continue to work every single day.
Yeah.
So I do feel like shit for a lot of people.
Yeah, there's certainly more appreciation for jobs that we probably didn't appreciate before. People on the checkouts in supermarkets.
Oh God, yeah.
And just all these type of people. Yeah. So, yeah, as you know, I spoke with Erica Rhodes on this a couple of days ago. So she was telling me a bit about, you're in LA, right? Yeah.
Yes. Hollywood.
And, yeah, she was saying it was kind of, people are starting to come out, but the beaches aren't packed. I don't know whether you know, but it was like the hottest day on record ever here today. So the beaches in the UK are rammed. You know, the lockdown's just been eased and everyone's just bitten Boris Johnson's hand off, and like the beaches are rammed here. How do you feel? It kind of, people, I think, fit in three categories: people that are going to the beach,
yeah,
people that aren't going to the beach, and then people that are taking photos of the people that are going to the beach and sending them to papers and complaining. So which of those three groups are you in?
I am of the group these days. I'm not sure which one exactly it falls into, which is I don't think we should be going to the beach. Yeah. And I have a little bit of judgment of the people going to the beach, but mostly I'm like, guys, if you know what, like, I get it. People are at the end of their rope. People need to go do stuff. There's a lot of this going on right now. A lot of like, do as I say, not as I do. So I'm not going to be one of those people that's super judgy of people getting together with their friends, because I've gotten together with friends. I'm not saying that I've gone to the beach or I've gone to a bar, but I've had a friend over for dinner. So especially the people who are saying we need to open everything back up because we need to go to work. Do I think we should be in an ideal world? Do I think we should be on lockdown further? Because I don't think we've really done much. We have flattened the curve slightly, as in kept people out of hospitals for a few months. Yeah. And I think that's about to explode again. But I don't blame anybody for wanting to go back out there and for actually going out there, as long as they're not being incredibly reckless.
Yeah.
I don't really have any judgment. Like people want to go live their lives, it's fine. I'm lucky enough that I can still stay quarantined in this place where I have everything I need. And for the most part, I'm sticking to that. But I don't think that other people should necessarily have to do that.
Yeah, that's cool. There's a lot of anger on Twitter and everywhere where these photos are shared, and just people,
I'm angry about
calling
the masks.
them morons and stuff like that, you know?
It is a little moronic. I'm not jumping in on that bandwagon, though. I'm just sort of keeping it to myself the way I mostly keep moronic behavior to myself. The mask thing, I'm not super happy about. It's not that hard to wear a mask. It's not that hard to try to be respectful, whether you believe in it or not. It's not a big deal. I go out. I've recently, right, the first 10 weeks, 12 weeks of this, I didn't go outside at all. I recently just started jogging.
Any reason for, I mean, what was the reason you kind of totally self-isolated?
Mostly because I just didn't know. My girlfriend's at risk. My girlfriend, I mean, we think that she is at risk. We don't really know. She had TB and pneumonia as a kid. And so I was like, why am I going to, go even have any sort, we were, wiping down all the groceries and just having them delivered. And now I'll go into a donut shop and buy a donut, with the, they have all lines and circles on the floors and all that. So it feels relatively safe, but I go jogging now, which I wouldn't have done before. And I'd say, you'd think in LA, people be like pretty woke and pretty like into all this. I'd say the people I pass on the street, maybe 20 or 30% are wearing masks. And of those people, half of them have them here.
Yeah.
Pass them.
Yeah.
They're around their necks. They're below their noses.
Same in the UK. It's keeping those necks safe.
Yeah. And so those people I'm a little bit angry with because I'm jogging by. I'm in your space. I saw a dude literally sneeze up into the air without a mask on. And I know he wasn't doing it intentionally, right? It's just like one of those things that like you don't think about. But those folks I'm a little pissed at. The fact that people are out there, fine. Just put a mask on, though. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Well, certainly don't put it on your neck. It's like then
just fucking wear it.
It's like then you're just using a mask up, to protect your neck. Yeah, it's people are very divided, I guess. But I tell you one thing that unites us all, Joe, and that is poker. That's everyone loves poker. Everyone loves Vegas. So for the few people that don't know, you are a commentator of many years standing on Poker Stars TV and lots of other places. How's the poker business been in lockdown? I guess it's been booming, has it?
Once again, it should be no shock to anyone that poker has found a rebirth in quarantine land. In poker, online poker numbers are up. Now, there's live poker, which has suffered quite a horrific death, although it's starting to come back a little bit in the States. That's one thing I would not participate in at the moment. I would not go to a casino and play poker, but
is that online poker starting to come back? Is Vegas starting to come back, or
Vegas? Not so much Vegas as for poker, I should say. But poker rooms around the country. That apparently in this country, science is different depending on what state you live in. So if you live in Florida, for example, there's lots of poker you can go play. Whereas if you live in California, there's only a few places you can go play. And in Vegas, there's almost no poker at the moment. It's just one of the things is that poker doesn't make a lot of money for casinos. So if a casino is going to take a risk and have people, they would much rather open up the slot machines than the poker room.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I've been to Vegas many times, but I haven't really played poker in.
Don't waste your time playing poker.
Vegas.
There's way better stuff to do.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, but you say numbers are up, and have they gone through the roof? The numbers playing poker online?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what they are, but I know that they're better than they have been in years.
Yeah.
And cool. Which is, obviously, look, I'm grateful for that being the case. I'm grateful that people are finding an outlet. Yeah, I'm grateful that, of course, it is beneficial to me personally, so I'm into that. I'm grateful for that. Competition has started to spring up in the poker world also. I work for the #1 online poker company in the world, and that's great. But there are some drawbacks to that. I think that competition is good. I think that the fact that now there are more people playing and there's a bigger piece of the pie for everybody to fight over is a good thing. So means that my company does more broadcasting and uses me more often. So that, the whole marketing competition side of thing, I think is really good. And on a personal level, I've been playing a lot of poker via Zoom um, for play money in the States. Real money is not legal to play online, but I've been playing with a lot of people.
What do you mean? What do you mean it's not legal?
Online poker in the United States for money is not legal as a country. It is legal in a few states,
Right.
Nevada, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and West Virginia, I believe. But you have to play with only people in that state.
Yeah, sure.
So I cannot play on PokerStars.
Okay.
For like the way you can playing against people from all over the world.
Yeah.
I can only play on PokerStars New Jersey if I'm in New Jersey, or PokerStars Pennsylvania if I'm in Pennsylvania. But you can play on PokerStars for play money, for fake chips.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of that just for fun, just as a way to hang out with people over Zoom.
Yeah.
And I've actually been connecting with a lot of people, writers, directors, comedians, folks that I would have never otherwise been able to interact with.
Yeah.
Like, I won't name drop people I have played with, but I will name drop someone I almost played with tonight. David Cross expressed some interest in playing in our little game tonight.
Oh, great.
He's not going to make it, but that's a guy that I'm like, of course he can play. Holy shit. Yes, David Cross can play in our game tonight. So that's been really fun. It's been fun and interesting, and not just name dropping people, but I've gotten to know a lot of people that work in the film and entertainment business, who work in, who are writers and who are directors and who are visual effects artists, and people who work in wardrobe and various things like that. Folks that, if you had to get everyone in one place together, it would never happen. But because of the technology of Zoom and everything, we've really had some fun social and got to know people that I would have never met before.
Well, I know you obviously from the UK, but it means I can hook up with you and, doing stuff like this. There have been big advantages of this lockdown. So, yeah, I mean, I love gambling. I don't play too much poker, as I say, but
what's your game in Vegas?
Craps.
I have a love-hate relationship with craps. Craps to me is always like when you're in high school and you're at your table and everyone's like kind of miserable, and then you look over at the cool table and everyone's high-fiving each other, getting blowjobs in the parking lot, ordering cocktails. Come on, and you're at your table and everyone's like,
yeah.
I'm always at that table, so I don't do craps.
And you move to that hot table and suddenly, boof.
Exactly. Suddenly they're like, oh, what the fuck are you doing here? Come on, guys. We're going back up to the suite.
Yeah. Now, I've had some good times on craps in Vegas and a few bad times, but you only remember the good times. That's the great thing about gambling. You only remember the good times. So lots has been written about the psychology of poker. You play a lot of poker, as you say, as well as commentating on it. Maybe a stupid question, but how big is psychology in poker? Is it as much as the luck of the cards, or?
It really depends on who you're playing against. If you are playing against the greatest players in the world, psychology is minimal. There's not a lot of psychology going on there. Almost all the greatest players in the world think very similarly. And the human aspects of their brains don't play into their decision-making all that much. They're like little computers. So psychology isn't incredibly useful when playing against the best in the world. It will give you maybe a slight insight, right? Like a 1% insight into what they're doing, but really most of the time it's knowing game theory, it's knowing statistics, it's knowing probability. Those are what it takes against the best players in the world. However, the best players in the world make up this tiny grain of sand of the population when really you're playing against the beach most of the time. And so against the beach, against the world at large, psychology is hugely important.
Right. Even online?
Online, it is a little bit, right? Like it is a little bit. Of course, when you're playing with someone live, there's a lot more psychology at play. There's tells, there's physical tells, there's verbal tells, but online you still get something called betting tells, right? You still get to analyze their behavior and being analytical, right? Being analytical, I guess psychology, again, it doesn't psychology of who the person is comes into play just a little bit online, right? There's a few assumptions you can make based on their screen name. Is this person, if this person's name is Scarface 420 69 69, you might be able to make a couple of small inferences about what kind of person that is. Now that could be a reverse.
What's a good screen name then? What's a good screen name if I start playing?
I mean, any screen name is a good screen name as long as you don't fit the mold of what a person would think someone with that screen name would be. If that makes sense.
Yeah, nice.
So it can be an ironic name, but so there's a little bit from that. But mostly what you're analyzing when you're doing online poker is why. Why did this person behave this way, right? And obviously the cards they're holding is one reason why, but there are bigger reasons why. How much money are we playing for? How far, if it's a tournament, how far are we from the money? Okay, so what happens in a poker tournament is if 100 people enter, typically 80 people get eliminated, win nothing, and the top 20 make some money. So sometimes you get to go, all right, well, we're one away from the money, and this person just made a huge bet. Why would they do that unless they have a very good hand? The why is things you have to figure out. You have less information online as to the why, but it's still there.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, nice. So the books on poker, talk about being like self-motivated, positive, emotionally controlled. These are all the good things for poker, calm under pressure. This whole list probably relates to stand-up as well. I mean, you do a lot of stand-up comedy as well. It's pretty similar in terms of psychology, the self-confidence and being focused. How much comedy were you doing just before lockdown?
Man, I was doing really well right before lockdown. I'm sure you know who he is, but some of your listeners might not. Norm Macdonald is a guy that I got hooked up with through poker, and he turns out he was a fan, and he started having me open for him pretty regularly.
Amazing.
Over the last 18 months or so, and we had a bunch of gigs booked right before lockdown happened, so that was a bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
I was just sort of getting to the point where I was doing the Comedy Store maybe once a month, not a regular or anything like that, but just, I don't know if you know how the politics of the Comedy Store works in LA, but I was getting to the point where they were asking me to come back to like the comics only bar after my shows, which is like a huge step in your comedy career. And I was just starting to get to the point where I felt like I had some respect in the comedy community around town. I had my own show in Vegas. I was putting on once a month that I was booking and producing myself, which, as you know, as someone who books and produces shows, that it sounds fucking great at first. You're like, my own show? Yeah, hell yeah, I'll do my own show. And then every month for 29 days, you're like, I don't know how I'm going to fucking fill these seats. And then people are canceling, and it feels good to have spots you can give out to people, right? Like, I fucking love that part of it, to be like, hey, I got a gig. It's in Vegas. You get 20 minutes. You get 15 minutes. You're paid. I put you up in a house. We all do a road trip out there. I love that aspect of it, right? That's super fun. But then people canceling, people, you say to them, look, it's not a bringer, but it's really good for everybody. If you could help out a little bit, people bring nobody, people put 5 names on a list, nobody shows up. So the stress of it was more than I was expecting.
Yeah. But I heard you on that live YouTube as well a couple of months ago, being quite pessimistic about live comedy. This was a couple of months ago, but you were saying, I don't know if it's ever going to come back. I'm like, whoa, it is coming back to a certain extent. Again, Erica Rhodes is playing clubs in Minnesota this week, as she said earlier this week on the podcast, and but to distanced audience. Are you still pessimistic that it's going to come back anytime soon in a real way?
I am pessimistic. And it doesn't mean I'm rooting for it to not come back, because obviously I want it to come back in full force. I'm pessimistic. We don't know yet what's going to happen. I feel like, again, no judgment for folks out there doing whatever they're doing, but it kind of seems like first, for a while, we pretend the virus wasn't happening. And then we pretended like the virus was over, even though we didn't really do anything. So I'm afraid, and I would love to be wrong, but I'm afraid that we may be able to trace 3 weeks from now 15 people at Ha Ha Comedy Hole in Minneapolis coming down with the COVID-19 virus because of that. And I think it's going to put everything to a screeching halt again. I would love to be wrong. I would love for that to be not the case. And everyone goes, yeah, like a couple people get sick here and there, and that's our new way of life. And the social distancing is working as long as we keep things open. That would be great. I think we're jumping the gun, but there's no way to find out until you do it, right? So we'll see what happens. But I'm no more optimistic now than I was before because we just don't know yet.
Yeah. Well, you're lucky having those dual aspects of your career then, the poker the poker and the comedy. I mean, if it never came back, if there was another virus next year, and because that's what I fear, there's going to be another virus next year, or this one will carry on, then there'll be something else next year, and then it really will die off. Theaters and clubs will just close more than they're doing so already. In terms of your kind of psychology and happiness, is comedy something that you could miss like nothing else, or would the poker keep you going to a certain extent? Or
it's weird because poker was first for me, and part of the reason why I didn't have to struggle as much as other people did in comedy was because I got to rock up to open mics, and I didn't really start doing it seriously till I moved to London. I got to rock up to open mics with the confidence of already being a television presenter, which was intangible, but then the actual genuine tangible part of occasionally a booker would go, I know you from the telly, you don't have to do this open mic night, well let me put you on a booked open mic night. And so I got to skip a couple of rungs, not a ton, but just like the really awful parts that where most of the people get weeded out. I didn't have to do as much of that as other people did, and I've always been really grateful for that. So, but in my mind, I was always like, oh, poker is like just like look, I want to be on you guys. I love the way you have it over there, by the way. So many great late night chat shows or I forget news. What do you guys call them? The ones where where everyone like bats around the news stories.
Yeah. Like panel shows.
Panel shows, right? Like panel shows. That's like my dream. To do panel shows, host a panel show, right?
Okay.
And I always told myself when I got on poker, I was like, look, dude, you're not on a panel show, but you're on television. It's late at night and you get to make jokes. In the grand spectrum of the universe, what you're doing is like pretty close, pretty close to that. So I had a taste of what it was like to actually be a semi-successful comedian, right? Like getting there, performing to big crowds, getting paid actual money to do things. And I loved it. And I will absolutely go back to that if I can. But one thing that COVID has taught me is to be happy with what I have.
Yeah.
And so if comedy never comes back again, I'm so fucking lucky.
Yeah.
I'm so fucking lucky that poker, this thing that would be a lot of other people's dream job, is my backup plan. And I still have that.
Yeah, and you have a lot, but I think it's really important for mental health, that gratitude. It's what a lot of people talk about for mental health. What have I got? What have I got? What am I happy about right now? Because we're always looking to the next level rather than what we've.
This really put that in perspective for me. Me being like somewhat unhappy and feeling like I'm kind of like, treading water with my career and when is the next thing going to happen. I went from that one day to the next day being like, oh, thank fucking God, like I can pay my rent this month. And you know what? If this is the rest of my life, I'll be happy with that.
Yeah. And you've got a lot, but it still must have been a hit, opening for Norm and making those strides in the Comedy Store, which is so hard to do. It's a mental health hit, isn't it? But you have to work on your mind. You have to say, no, I'm lucky, gratitude, to pull you back from those moments.
The thing that made it a little bit less of a hit was that I knew it was happening to everyone, right? Sometimes it feels like it's not, right? When you're stuck at home, in your mind, it feels like, oh, but my competition are probably doing better than me somehow. They're probably not, but everyone got frozen in place. So now that folks like Erica, for example, right, who are at least a couple of rungs above me, when I hear them going out on the road and getting spots, now it starts to weigh on me a little bit. I'm like, oh, like,
oh, sorry, man, that was my fault then.
no, but it's fine. That's reality, right? But now that I
Yeah.
know that other people are getting out there, now I have a choice too, right? See, before I didn't have a choice. There were no options for comedians. But now there are options, and the options are: do you go against? Do I behave hypocritically and go out and get myself into situations that I don't think are particularly safe because I don't want to lose a step, because I don't want to be behind everybody else? And that also puts me ahead of the comedians who feel more strongly than I do and who will definitely not take those chances. Do I roll the dice and put myself out there as, like, for example, I was supposed to play the Hard Rock in Florida, the big new guitar hotel that they just opened. They were going to give me a headline night on a night when there was a poker tournament happening, knowing that there's a very good chance I was going to be able to maybe not sell out, but put some butts in chairs for that show. And now I kind of am dreading getting the email from them. I don't think I will get it, because I think there's plenty of other big acts now that they can bring in and fill the place who are desperate for spots. But if they called me and said, hey, we want to set a date for you to come back and do that again, I'm like, fuck, I don't know. I don't know what I would say. I honestly don't know. Like, in my heart, I think it's dangerous, not just for me, but for others. But in my cock, I want to take a fucking headline gig at the Hard Rock in Florida. I want to see my name on that flyer. I want to see my name on that marquee. And that's an interesting dilemma for me, because at that point I can retroactively decide and go, oh, all these other people think it's fine. Maybe you're just being overly cautious. Isn't it weird? Speaking of psychology, isn't it weird how when it's something that you don't want to do, how much easier it is to not do that thing?
Yeah.
Like if all we had to do to kill coronavirus would have been don't go to church, that would have been very easy for me.
Yeah.
Right? But if I'm a super religious person, it might be like, well, maybe church isn't so bad. That's when you start to cherry pick the information, right?
Yeah.
The information you want to believe. Well, apparently you can't really transmit it if you're asymptomatic. And apparently it doesn't really happen on surfaces, as much as I thought it was. That's when we get into some dangerous territory. But I will say, I don't fault people who are in desperate situations who do change their opinions based on that, because that's being a human being.
Yeah, but it's not sometimes desperation. It's, as you say, it's something in a comedian's mind, opening for Norm Macdonald. This is what you want to do. This is how you're wired potentially to be a comedian. And when those opportunities come up, it's going to be very difficult to turn those things down, because as a comedian, it's like, yes, I mean, you talked about the cock, but I'm sure it's more the head, particularly you're nice and happy with your girlfriend. It's the head. It's like, this is why
it's the ego. That's why I said cock.
Yeah. No, totally. But this is why I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm putting words into your mouth, but for me, it's like, this is what drives me. This is I want to make my mark on the world through stand-up. And if there's risks out there, that will probably take me over the edge into doing stuff,
Of course. And that's what makes this entire game that we're playing, this morality game of COVID, so interesting, in that if it truly were a disease that only affected us as the individual, that puts a whole new paint job on things, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I was only risking my life, but if I go and do that gig and pick it up there and then give it to every person on the plane coming home, and then come and give it to my girlfriend and she gives it to her, like, those are things that morally, it doesn't sit very well with me. It's a very strange dilemma that everyone's being faced with.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Well, your stand-up's great, man. So I hope you come back soon. I mean, you were great years ago, even in the UK, when you were really just early doors in the career. As you say, coming from TV gives you that.
That's very kind. I appreciate it, because you know what, honestly, you've always been one of my favorite London comedians, and so that's nice of you to say. I do appreciate it a lot.
Oh, thanks so much, man. Yeah, I've been looking.
You come across as you're just a comic. Like, there are a lot of people trying to be comics, and for as long as I've known you, I was like, oh, this guy like knows what he's doing, and nobody knows what they're doing, but you seem like it.
Oh, thanks so much, man. That means a lot. That means a lot. I mean, yeah, I was reminding myself of some of those. You pinned a tweet actually with something like from 4 years ago, and you put on the tweet, "Oh, I've improved a lot since then." But you know, you were clearly very, very good then as well. But what was great about that was, and that's why you pinned it, I guess, you were predicting coronavirus with Trump, and that was amazing. That was just like you predicted Trump was going to kill a lot of people with the cold or coronavirus. Yeah,
it was so weird because that line I ad-libbed in the moment, and it's not a very funny line, and I kind of bail out on it halfway through because I don't know if you do this when you're doing comedy, but like sometimes you'll make a joke and you'll have this conversation in your head where time stops and you go, we didn't agree we were going to make this joke. I know, but it felt right in the moment. Yeah, but it's not really a joke. Why did you say it? It felt right. Well, we should have written it out.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I went through when I said that. And that joke is part of the reason why I never published that set before, because it's just kind of like a meandering moment where I don't really get a laugh. But then I accidentally rewatched it and I was like, holy shit, I just said Trump's going to kill us all with the common cold.
Yeah, it was a new material night. So yeah, obviously it was a bit, you know, you were working on bits and stuff, but my goodness, how that's the most prescient bit of stand-up there's ever been, you know.
So ridiculous.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So yeah, maybe just briefly, can we touch upon the huge amount in the UK and certainly internally in the comedy industry with Me Too coming back this week?
Yeah, well, Chris is part of my outer circle, so.
Oh, okay, yeah. Even people joking about Chris as getting people cancelled over here just for a time. It's just like people are very, it's and obviously, I don't know whether you know, but the Joe Rogan clip with Joey Diaz came back, and that was resurfacing. What's your experience in LA? Because I've been to the LA Comedy Store once, and didn't hang out in the comedian's bar or anything, but what's your general experience of that, and maybe any differences between the States and the UK in terms of how people are treated?
Sure. Well, as far as the Chris situation is concerned, Chris had behaved that way toward a couple of my girlfriends who were perfectly of legal age and, and didn't do anything that I think anyone should necessarily lose their life or career or freedom over, but it made me not like him. And so I had many opportunities to be a part of whatever was going on where Chris and his buddies were a part of it, and I declined most of the time. I'm a little bit angry with some of my friends who knew that I wasn't hanging with him for those reasons, and didn't care because he was famous. Didn't care because being friends with Chris D'Elia is good for your comedy career.
Right.
I never liked it. And now,
so you were trying to persuade those friends, were you, not to hang with him?
I didn't try to persuade them. All I said was, "Oh, Chris is going to be there. He treated a couple of my girlfriends like garbage. Okay. I don't want to be around him." Yeah. And they were like, and again, it's hard to expect people to stand up for something they're hearing like second or third hand. So, but I was just like, if Chris were not a famous comedian, he would have been outed a long time ago. He would already be an outcast. He would already not have gigs. I just think it's kind of gross the way we excuse things for people who are famous and people who can do things for us, people that are beneficial for us to know. So I'm more mad at the comedy community for the people who knew and still kissed his butt anyway. So I don't really, my opinion on Chris hasn't changed. I feel the exact same way about him that I did before. I'm like, I know he acts like this. As far as cancellation in general is concerned, I genuinely think that cancellation is vigilante justice. And vigilante justice is often very gratifying, right? And they often get it right, and they sometimes get it wrong, and they sometimes ruin people's lives. And vigilante justice exists when there is a vacuum of actual justice, right? If the actual people who are supposed to be protecting us and doing what's right are doing it, there's no need for vigilante justice. So I think that cancel culture is a direct response to Donald Trump, is a direct response to Boris Johnson. It is people who feel as if justice is not being served. We can't get Donald Trump, despite the fact that he is a rapist and very likely guilty of genocide and racist and all of these other things. He's one of the worst people on the planet, and he is untouchable. Nothing he does ever does he face repercussions for. So what do? We go out and we get that guy, and we're going to get that guy, and we're going to get that guy, and we're going to get you because we can't get him. And I don't think that cancel culture is as big a problem as people make it out to be. Is it a problem? Sometimes, yes. I think it's doing far more good than it is evil at the moment. Especially when it comes to comedians. I can't think of a comedian who's been canceled because of something he did in his act.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. Even the guys who tell the worst rape jokes and race jokes in their acts, they're not canceled. They may not get booked that much because people just don't want to hear that shit right now.
Yeah.
But they're not canceled. It's the people are getting canceled for being pieces of shit off stage.
Yeah. Yeah, but what you said about vigilante justice is great. That's exactly it, isn't it? And, a lack of formal justice creates that vigilante justice at any level. So in the comedy community, that's being improved upon in the UK. I don't know whether any moves are there to improve things in the US in terms of, a proper kind of reporting mechanism, maybe a kind of arbitration and all this kind of thing where there's a proper justice. Because if you go the other way, if you go vigilante justice, as you say, probably 90% is good. But then there's those 10 cases where mistakes are made and people are pathological liars in the comedy industry as well.
Look, and you get the crowd, the mob, the angry mob does develop a bloodlust, right?
Yeah.
Does develop a bloodlust. We're like, take this guy down and take this guy down. This guy, we're taking you down too. There's always like they come in threes. We're like the third guy's kind of like, this is a little bit more of a gray area. As far as I know, there's nothing organized or formal happening in the States to help prevent these sorts of things from happening, either from the vigilante justice or actually taking down the bad guys. At the moment, it appears as if this is all we have.
Vigilante justice, you mean?
Yeah, I don't there is no governing body of comedy. No. There is no, there are a couple of gatekeepers. The two biggest being Mitzi Shore, who mostly doesn't even, Mitzi passed away. And then there's Jamie Masada, who runs the Laugh Factory. Those are like, there's a couple of the big clubs in New York, but these folks, they don't really get involved in what's happening in politics. And now they have these awful decisions of, I've been friends with Chris D'Elia for 20 years. He's put lots of butts in seats. Do I satiate the angry mob? Do I continue to let someone who's probably a piece of shit continue to grace my stage, knowing that it will also hurt me financially? These people are in bad situations. My only hope, and I'm a pretty big asshole on social media myself for outing people for doing things that I think are shit behaviors. I can only hope part of the reason I do it is that we just have fewer people behaving like this in the first place. That seeing what happens, seeing what is considered acceptable behavior and unacceptable behavior, people go, oh, that's a piece of shit thing to do. I don't want to get dragged. I'm not going to be a piece of shit.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's going to improve a lot. And as I say, in the UK, there are slight moves to put something more formal in place. And I think that's what's needed to make a difference long after the hashtags go away. I mean, we see that with any hashtags. I mean, like Black Lives Matter, everyone was talking about that 2 weeks ago with George Floyd. And unfortunately, one of the placards that was put up at one of the rallies there was, will you still care about me when the hashtag stopped trending? And that's the point, isn't it? It's caring about these things when it stops trending,
Yeah, as people that these issues don't really affect, right?
Yeah.
I'm not affected by police brutality. I'm not affected by sexual harassment. It's very easy to go on about your business and go, I'm fucking tired, guys. Like, I just need a break from it all. And lots of people don't get a break from it. Lots of people don't. So I'm happy to see that we're fighting the fight for longer than we ever have before. And the coincidence of it being during a lockdown where all the woke social justice warriors in the world have jobs that they don't have to be at right now because they're either working from home or they're laid off or they're furloughed. This was a bad time to be a bad guy because people got nothing better to do but to tear down statues.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Man, thanks so much for joining me. It's so good to see you in seemingly such a good place mentally, and a good place physically behind you as well.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Such a good place. You got a good apartment there, but a good place mentally, man. You just sound like you're, would you say you're more sorted than you've been ever been, or?
Yeah, I don't like, again, I wouldn't want to brag about it, but
no, it's great, man. It's great.
My relationship is good. My girlfriend and I have fallen even more deeply in love than before lockdown started. I've got that going for me. I've had steady work. I have had, stand up is the one area where things are obviously lacking, but stand up was always the bonus, the cherry on top anyway.
Yeah.
So especially comparatively speaking to where things could be, other than the fact that I've probably put on, 10 kilos or whatever, you guys, I don't know how many stone that is, at least a stone. Other than that, I've been very, very lucky. I've always been lucky in my life, terribly unlucky at cards. I always say this, I'm incredibly unlucky at poker, but I run so good at life, and I'm so grateful and so lucky that things have just plateaued for me during all of this. There hasn't been a dip at all, and I'm incredibly, incredibly lucky for that.
Oh, that's great, man. That's great. As you say, gratitude, being grateful. It's the key. It's the key. Thank you so much, Joe. You're awesome. Any other messages before we close for the world? People can check you out, obviously, online. And
sure. Yeah.
Stapes on Twitter, and anything else you want to report before we close?
At Stapes on Twitter, and PokerStars and myself are doing a 23-day long online poker broadcast. If you guys like poker, if you just want to come hang out for a little bit, there's a big event called the Stadium Series. That's going to be on PokerStars. It starts July 5th, and we're going to be broadcasting July 14th to August 4th every single day during that period, following all the action. There's $50 million in guarantees in these tournaments. So over $50 million will be won by various players on PokerStars during that time. You can check all of that out at twitch.tv/PokerStars. And if you follow me on Twitter at Stapes or at InstaStapes on Instagram, you can get any of those details.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. I will check it out. Joe, you're a lovely guy. You're an amazing comic. You're a great commentator. You're just beautiful all around. Thank you so much for joining me on Psycomedy today.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Lots of love to you. Keep well.